On a gray morning in the heart of the city, as clouds gathered heavy with the threat of rain, Dr. Aaliyah Monroe eased her modest black sedan into the wide glass-fronted parking lot of Sterling Motors, a dealership known for its glittering display of European luxury cars and the arrogance of its staff who believed they could judge the worth of a customer with a single glance. And as she stepped out of her car, her polished heels clicking on the wet pavement, her navy suit cut perfectly to her tall frame, her hair neatly pulled into a bun that radiated power and precision. She wasn't coming as the multimillionaire business magnate who had clawed her way from poverty to become one of the city's most respected CEOs, she was coming undercover, incognito, as a regular customer who simply wanted to observe, to test, to witness how her employees behaved when they thought no one important was watching, because what the staff didn't know, and what they were about to learn in the most shocking and humiliating way, was that she wasn't just any customer, she was the secret owner of Sterling Motors itself, and every single person inside the showroom, from the receptionists who answered the phones with rehearsed fake charm, to the salesmen in overpriced suits who strutted like peacocks among the gleaming cars, ultimately worked for her, depended on her, and would soon discover that the woman they were about to dismiss, mock, and underestimate held their careers, their paychecks, and even the dealership's future in her perfectly manicured hand. She pushed open the glass doors and entered the showroom, greeted not with courtesy but with indifference. Two receptionists lounged behind the counter scrolling through their phones, giggling at some meme, and when Aaliyah cleared her throat politely and said in her steady, calm voice, "Good morning, I'd like to take a look at the new S-Class on display," the young woman at the desk didn't rise, didn't smile, but instead looked her up and down with eyes full of judgment, her painted lips curling into a smirk as she muttered, "Oh, are you sure you're in the right place? These aren't rentals." Her friend stifled a laugh, whispering something cruel under her breath, and Aaliyah felt the heat of humiliation rush up her spine though she kept her composure, years of boardroom battles having trained her to hold fire in her eyes while her face remained cool marble, and she asked again, "Could you send a salesperson to assist me, please?" To which the receptionist replied with exaggerated patience, "Ma'am, we don't just let anyone touch those cars, you know, they cost more than a house. Maybe try the used lot across town, they have more affordable options." And as if to add salt to the wound, in that very moment the glass doors opened again and a young white couple entered, barely setting foot on the marble floor before a salesman practically ran to them with a wide smile, offering coffee, brochures, and keys to whichever car they wanted to test, while Aaliyah was left standing ignored, insulted, dismissed as if she were invisible or unworthy, and the bitterness of it all churned in her chest because she remembered being a little black girl in a poor neighborhood, hearing again and again that she would never belong in certain places, never be welcome in certain spaces, never be able to afford certain luxuries, yet here she was decades later, owning companies, building empires, signing contracts worth more than the entire dealership, only to be belittled in the same old way by people who thought they could measure her worth based on her skin and her clothes. She did not leave, though her pride told her to storm out. Instead she stayed, because this was the moment she had come for, the raw unfiltered truth of how her staff treated customers when they thought nobody was watching, and when a tall salesman finally drifted over, his cologne thick, his expression smug, he didn't extend his hand or even introduce himself but looked her up and down like she was wasting his time and said, "Listen, maybe you'd be more comfortable at our economy branch down the street, this location is really for high-value clients." And the condescension in his voice struck like a slap. Aaliyah asked coolly, "And what makes you think I don't qualify as a high-value client?" And the salesman chuckled, shrugging with false sympathy, "Well, ma'am, these cars are six figures, you know, not everyone can handle that, it's not personal, just reality, people like you usually shop elsewhere." He said, "People like you," with the subtle cruelty of someone who thought he was clever, and around them the young couple was being offered test drives, contracts, and champagne while Aaliyah stood there seething but silent, her mind racing, remembering every insult she had swallowed to climb to the top, every boardroom where she had been underestimated, every deal where she had been spoken over by men who now worked under her command, and in that instant she decided it was time to end the charade. She reached into her leather portfolio and pulled out a thick folder embossed with the Sterling Motors seal, dropping it onto the counter with a sound that cut through the hum of the showroom like thunder, and when the salesman frowned in confusion, she opened it to reveal ownership papers, contracts, and corporate filings with her name printed across every page in bold black ink, and with a voice that rang like steel she said, "Reality? Reality is this. I don't need to finance a single car here, because I already own them all. Every car in this showroom, every paycheck you cash, every light bulb overhead, it all belongs to me. This dealership is mine." The words echoed in the stunned silence, the receptionist's jaw falling open, the salesman's face draining of color, the couple pausing mid-step to stare in disbelief, and then Aaliyah leaned closer, her eyes burning into the salesman's, and said softly, "And if you think I'm going to let employees who treat customers with arrogance, disrespect, and racism represent my brand, you are gravely mistaken." Then she straightened, her presence towering though she stood alone, and she turned to the receptionist, pointing with unshakable authority, "You're fired. And so are you," she added, stabbing her finger at the salesman who had just moments ago told her to shop at the used lot, and the words fell like a gavel, final and irreversible. Gasps rippled across the showroom, the general manager stumbled out of his office red-faced and stammering, "Ms. Monroe, I didn't know you were coming today, please, they didn't mean," but she raised a hand and cut him off, her voice sharp as glass, "You didn't need to know. That was the point. I came here to see the truth, and now I have. You will retrain this staff from the ground up or you will join them on the unemployment line. From this moment forward, Sterling Motors will operate under one principle: every customer is to be treated with dignity and respect, no matter what they look like, what they wear, or what you think they can afford. Anyone who cannot meet that standard will be gone." Her words crashed down like a storm, leaving no room for excuses, no shelter for arrogance, and as she gathered her portfolio and strode to the doors, the stunned silence of her employees followed her like shadows, their faces pale, their confidence shattered, their careers dangling by the thread of her mercy. Outside, the drizzle had thickened into rain, cool drops falling on her face as she slipped back into her sedan, her pulse steady, her expression calm, and as she started the engine she cast one last glance at the glowing Sterling Motors sign and thought of all the lessons life had forced her to learn, that power often wore disguises, that respect must be demanded not begged for, and that sometimes you had to remind people, in no uncertain terms, exactly who you were. She drove away knowing the storm inside Sterling Motors was only just beginning, and by the week's end new leadership would be installed, new policies enforced, and those who thought they could judge her worth by her skin would find themselves replaced, powerless, and forgotten, because she was not just a customer, not just a CEO, she was the owner, the storm, the reckoning they never saw coming.